Hello, welcome to Technically Analytics. Today we're going to be talking about the last division to go over, the NL East, my favorite division. So, in this episode, we're going to start with the Miami Marlins, who went 84-78, 20 games behind the first place Braves. The Marlins lineup has changed slightly. They have Luis Arraez, Josh Bell, Jake Burger, Jazz Chisholm Jr., Tim Anderson, Jesus Sanchez, Avisail Garcia, Brian De La Cruz, and Christian Bethancourt. So overall, I actually don't like this lineup that much because I have this team in last place, so clearly. But I do like that they added Tim Anderson. We'll talk about him more in a bit. It's pretty much the same lineup as last year. It's got probably similar production, I would assume. And this team struggled to score runs, which is the biggest problem that they've had over the past few years. They can't score runs. We'll get to the pitching. They could pitch like crazy, but they can't score runs. And they really didn't do anything to fix that. And on their bench, they have Nick Fortes, John Birdie, Vidal Brujan, and Nick Gordon. Again, their bench is okay. I don't love it. I don't hate it. But, going back to the lineup, though, I like 1 through 5, basically. And then the rest, I could take or leave it. They don't do enough run production, and their bench doesn't add that much. John Birdie adds some speed, get some steals. Nick Gordon has decent power, Nick Fortes has decent power, but overall, this team just doesn't impress me. And then I want to go over Tim Anderson. He's a shortstop. He came over from the White Sox. He had a tough 2 seasons. The past 2 seasons have been really tough for him, as you could tell by his stats. He barely slugged above 400. He had a good average and good on base in 2022, but in 2023 he was just so out of it. He only played 123 games. He was injured a lot in 2022, so he needs a big time bounce back season. That's what he needs to have, because when you look at when he was really good, you could see that he did 128 rated runs created plus in 2019, 140 to 2020. All right. And 2021 118, and he hasn't gotten back to that since. Basically, since 2021 he's been bad, just bad. So hopefully the Marlins, he can find something. Maybe, I mean, it's not a hitter's park, so probably not, and as you can see, the projections for Anderson are similar to what they were last season, what he had last season. And I mean, the Marlins need him to actually do way better than this. They need him to be 110, 118, 120 even, weighted runs created plus guy. So yeah, they need him not to strike out so much, and they need him to hit the ball and get walks. So if he can do that, I think that would be great for the Marlins. That would help the Marlins tremendously. So yeah, on to the pitching, where the Marlins are the strongest. They have in the rotation Jesus Luzardo, AJ Puck, Trevor Rogers, Ryan Ruthers, Yovani Chirinos. And in their bullpen, they have Tanner Scott, Andrew Nardi, Anthony Bender, George Soriano, Sixto Sanchez, Anthony Maldonado, Declan Cronin, and Brian Hoeing. So their rotation is quite injured, actually. The bottom 2 or 3 guys, or actually most of the guys, are not even really starters usually. They have a lot of guys on their injured list, although I do like Luzardo and Rogers. Both have been decent, and Puck has been decent too over the past couple of years. So those guys will always give you a good season, but very injury plagued rotation. And as for their bullpen, it's pretty solid, actually. One of the more solid bullpens than you would think. The problem is for their pitching is that they can't score runs, so it really doesn't help their pitching out too much with their ability, with their lack of ability to score runs. So yeah, it's kind of a weird situation for the Marlins, which is why I kind of have them ranked last in the division because of this, because they can't hit. So how are they gonna win games if they can't score runs? Even if their pitching is solid, it doesn't matter. So the pitcher I want to talk about is actually on the injured list, Sandy Alcantara. He's one of the best pitchers in the league when he's healthy, and they need him to come back and be healthy again. Now, last season, he kind of showed some weakness, actually, for the first time since he was a rookie, basically. He showed that he was human. But I think if he could get back to what he was doing. The problem with him is that he throws way too many innings. They kind of overuse him in a way. Like, you can see the innings he threw in 2019. He threw 197 innings, and then in 2020, obviously not. In 2021, 205, 2022, 228, and 2023, 184. So, and that was only cut short due to injuries. He would have been at around 200 probably or more if he had played the whole season. But yeah, they need him to have like a bounce back season, which I think he will once he gets back and he's healthy. So yeah, he needs to be healthy though. You can see the predictions, not the projections, not exactly crazy, but if he does play, you could imagine 191, 3.53 ERA. Yeah, about right. And he's a really good pitcher, one of the best in the league. So they need him to come back healthy. Now, going on to the injured, as you could tell, they have a whole rotation on their injured list. Seriously, like I mentioned, Alcantara. They have Edward Cabrera, Braxton Garrett, Yuri Perez. Some of these guys will be back mid-season, and some of them won't be back at all. So, like, I think Yuri Perez is out for a little while. Braxton Garrett's out for a little while. Cabrera's out for a while. Alcantara will be out probably till mid-season or early to mid-season, and then they have our reliever on the injured list too. So looking at their organizational details, you can see they lost a lot of guys. They only brought back Jonathan Davis, who's out on the roster currently. They could bring back Yuri Gurriel or Johnny Cueto. I don't know if those guys signed. Gene Segura is also still available. They could bring him back. But the problem is their offense, and you can see it here. Even though they were a good average team due to Luis Ariz, who is probably one of the best leadoff hitters in the game, but everything else just lacked. Like they were in the bottom of almost every category offensively. And then their starting pitching, obviously very, very good, like in close to the top 10 or in the top 10 of every category. Their bullpen was not as good, but I think their bullpen's still pretty decent. Like, I expect them to be able to pitch really well. I think the problem with their bullpen is that they don't score runs, so you're going to lose games if you can't score runs. It's just how it works, right? So yeah, that's the rankings from last year. And then they have some prospects that might be ready to come up soon, quite a few actually. So if those guys can hit, they should bring those guys up immediately and get that going right away. Now, as for my prediction for the Miami Marlins, I'm going to give them a 74 and 88 record, last place in the NL East, and you'll see why in a second, because I'm pretty high on this next team. The Washington Nationals are the next team. They went 71 and 91, 33 games behind the first place Braves. The Nationals lineup is looking pretty decent. They made some additions actually, which is nice to see. They got CJ Abrams, Lane Thomas, Jesse Winker, Joey Meneses, Joey Gallo, Keibert Ruiz, Nick Senzel, Luis Garcia Jr., and Victor Robles. I actually really like this lineup, especially with the additions. I'll talk about Winker a bit later, but I like number 1 through, I would say, probably 7. I think it's a pretty deep lineup, honestly. Especially if Meneses could take a step forward, if Gallo cannot strike out so much and just hit dingers, and I like Nick Senzel coming over from the Reds. I think he was a good addition. I mean, he'll definitely be. I think his defense is a plus, but his hitting could also help too. So good defense. His hitting's okay. Keibert Ruiz, obviously a great hitting catcher, one of the better ones. I mean, there's obviously JT Realmuto in this division, so you kind of gotta take that. But CJ Abrams leading off, he was pretty good last year. His productions look pretty good. Lane Thomas, power guy. And Winker and Meneses need to really step up the power. I think that's going to really help too. So on their bench, they have Riley Adams, Trey Lincecum, Ilmario Vargas, and Eddie Rosario. I like the Rosario ad. It makes your bench quite strong. The other guys, take it or leave it, I guess. So going on to Jesse Winker, he's an outfielder. He has struggled the past couple years, you could say. Not been himself. He was okay with Seattle, and then he kind of had an off year in Milwaukee. So yeah, and the most notable thing you could tell about him is he had that one good season with Cincinnati, that 24 home run season, and then ever since then he's been kind of just like not so good, right? I mean, he's been decent in other seasons, but lately he's been struggling. Like he's been on a struggle streak for a few years now, and he's due to bounce back any year. So unless he's washed, and that's possible. I don't know, but I don't think so. I think he still has it in him. He's not that old. Now, the projections are not very kind to him, but they are pretty similar to what he's been doing, really. And he needs to be around this steamer projection: 251, 362, 406, 112 weighted runs created plus. That would be the best outcome for him, probably, if he were to do any of these projections. And they need him to hit home runs. They need him to hit probably more than 10 home runs. At least 15 probably would be nice. But because last year he only had 1 home run. He didn't hit very well. He struck out a lot. So if he could get the strikeouts down and just hit home runs and be that cleanup guy, that third hitter, fourth hitter, that'd be great for the Nationals. I think this team could be good, actually. So I'm kind of high on them. And looking at the rotation, they have Josiah Gray, Patrick Corbin, Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, Trevor Williams. And their bullpen, they have Kyle Finnegan, Hunter Harvey, Tanner Rainey, Jordan Weems, Robert Garcia, Derek Wall, Richard Blyer, Robert Gesellman. So I really love the rotation, with the exception of Corbin, who's on that last year of that horrible contract that he had. He was paid like $30 million to have like a 11 ERA or 5 ERA or whatever. But the other guys in the lineup actually really, really decent. Gray's turning into a star. He's going to be sort of an ace soon. Gore, he's learning, he's decent. And then Irvin and Williams, I think he's a suitable 5-starter. All right, that's what I'll say about him. He's not the best, but he does pitch well in like emergency situations, I would say. And Irvin, we'll see what he could do. It's only he's still a rookie technically, so we'll see how he develops. And in their bullpen, I do like the back of their bullpen specifically. I like Finnegan, Harvey, and Rainey. I think those guys are going to have a good season, especially Finnegan, who we'll talk about in a bit here, or right now, actually. Talk about right now. So Kyle Finnegan, he's their closer. Been with the Nationals since 2020. Pretty decent career so far. Pretty good stats. Under 4 ERA for every season he's pitched. He doesn't allow a lot of hits or a lot of home runs. He has some trouble with the control, but it's been better in the past few seasons. And I think this guy if he could have another great season or even step it up a little bit, he'll be a good addition, or not a good addition, but a good piece in their bullpen. Probably one of the better pieces they have. Because I don't know what to expect from the newcomers, like Gesellman and them. I mean, they're kind of like, they have like on and off. Like sometimes they have good years, usually they have bad. So for Finnegan, I'm expecting him to hopefully step it up. Let's see. Does it say the saves? Yeah, he had 28 saves last year. He's gonna hopefully get 30, and except for against the Mets. And then, yeah, like if he could get his ERA below 3, like a 2, like he had in 2020, that would be great. Like that would be amazing for the Nationals. They could really use that. And on the injury list, they have some good guys on their injured. They have Stone Garrett, who's a great outfielder from Arizona. That's unfortunate because he's a big loss. Steven Strasburg, who's been out for a long time. Cade Cavalli out for at least for this year. And they have Jose Ferrer, Dylan Floro, and Mason Thompson, all relievers. Probably looks like some might be back soon, others maybe not. Floro might be back soon. So yeah, but Stone Garrett probably the biggest, in Strasburg obviously the biggest losses. But they haven't had Strasburg for quite a few years. So yeah, those guys are the big losses. Garrett would have brought in a lot of like power and like good fielding to the team. Probably a better team with him. Maybe even like prediction moving. So they lost a few players. No one that huge. Dominic Smith. Yeah, no one that big. In their prospects, they got a few guys coming up. They're gonna be ready soon. Cade Cavalli, but he's injured right now. Cole Henry, Drew Millas. I mean, maybe these guys come up and do something. We'll see. So in terms of last year's rankings, they were okay at offense. They could do better. I'm hoping this will actually go up a little bit, maybe like mid-teens, like 15, 14. And the starting pitching was the worst in the league, but with Corbin and the other guys they had, like it's not that surprising. Hopefully this will be better. I don't think it's gonna go up too much. Maybe low 20s or yeah, like 21 or 22, 20 even, 19 if they're lucky. And then their bullpen, I would expect the same, to be honest. I think Finnegan and the top three guys, the three guys at the back are probably the best. So you gotta kind of have tempered expectations for them. But I think if every guy has a career year or close to it, or a few guys have a career year and the hitting and pitching, this team could surprise people. I think they're gonna in a few years they're gonna be a really good team. So for my prediction, I'm putting the Nationals one game ahead of the Marlins at 75 and 87, kind of a spicy pick. But I just don't feel like the Marlins are that good. I think the Nationals are going to beat them out. I mean, and the Marlins did get to the playoffs last year, to be fair to them, but they lost in the first round by a sweep. So, and I feel like it was kind of like the Nationals were not far away from the Mets in terms of like games play, in terms of record last year. So I don't think it's that wild that they could like improve 4 games. You know, they were 75, or the Mets were 75, 87, and I think the Nationals could do that like the Mets did last year, and they have like a way worse team than the Mets. Who are the next team? The New York Mets are my favorite team in the MLB. They went 75 and 87, 29 games behind the Braves. So for the Mets, their lineup is Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Francisco Alvarez, Jeff McNeil, Starling Marte, Brett Beatty, Ji-Man Choi, Harrison Bader. So I do like the Mets lineup. I think they should have added a power hitter in the offseason to help Pete, to protect Pete, because he's gonna get walked a lot. Hopefully, most Mets fans are hoping that either Vientos or Alvarez can become that power hitter that could protect Pete. Because without bringing in somebody, then who's gonna do it in this lineup, right? Like, there's no clear guy that's gonna be protecting Pete. So that's the biggest issue with the Mets. I feel like the top 4 or 5, 6 even is solid, and then the rest of it is questionable, right? So I like Nimmo. I think they might move him out of the leadoff spot, probably put Marte or McNeil there, and then Lindor and Pete obviously always have solid seasons. Lindor had a sneaky good season last year. He went 30 for 30 home runs, 30 steals. He was in the top 5 of almost every category, like behind Acuna. So yeah, underrated season for him. Alonso, free agent next year. We'll see if they re-sign him. I mean, it's gonna be a bidding war. He signed with Boris, so you know how that goes. Look at Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery. So yeah, that's gonna happen for him next year, which is fun. And then Alvarez, hoping that he really blossoms into a real power hitter and can protect Pete and just anchor this lineup. McNeil, seemingly moving into leadoff, like I said. Marte, his biggest issue is health. Like, if you could stay healthy, that would be amazing for us, because he's been so hurt the past few years. It's bad. It's made his contract look awful. And then we'll talk about Brett Beatty in a minute. Ji-Man Choi, he looks like he's going to be probably the starting DH for now, or possibly splitting time with Vientos. And then we have Harrison Bader holding down center field, defensive wizard. If he get hit, that would be a bonus. So JD Martinez has signed with the New York Mets. The news dropped the day I recorded this video. So Martinez signed for a 1-year, $12 million deal, $4.5 million up front, and a bunch of deferred money a bunch later. So JD Martinez is an outfielder and mainly designated hitter. He played with the Dodgers last year. And as you can see, the lineup for the Mets looks a bit different with Martinez in it. Now, obviously, because I recorded my video before he signed, I didn't have the luxury of including this in my video. But I'm going to include it here as like in the middle of it. So yeah, you can see this moves Ji-Man Choi basically off the roster. Looks like they're going to put Mark Vientos on the bench. And JD's going to bat right behind Pete, and he's going to protect Pete, just like I said as you just heard in the past few minutes, that we needed someone to protect Pete, and that was going to be the big issue for the team. And finally, the Mets have addressed this need, which we haven't addressed for 3 or 4 years now, probably. It's just been like a constant problem. They don't have haven't had a decent power hitter behind Pete, a real power threat to protect him, so he can get pitches to hit and not get walked or struck out or get pitched around. And I mean, Martinez legitimately makes the Mets like a better team overall. So looking at Martinez's career stats, you could see why we really like this signing so much, because you could see that he just goes off every single season, and even in a bad season, he's going to give you 20 home runs. Like even in a bad season, 20 home runs. Like give me any season that he's had besides the first few seasons in Houston. Like he does great. He has a great record of hitting the ball consistently. Especially his years in Detroit, Boston, Arizona. Like he was one dot and hitting, 40 home runs consistently. So I really like this signing, and the biggest thing is the power. That's what we want from him. We want him to be a power hitter, power guy, and that's what he is. And unfortunately, the one thing that comes with that is strikeouts, and you can see his strikeout totals: 178 strikeouts in 2015, but he also hit 38 homers, had a 879 OPS. Like this is the kind of thing I'll take from JD Martinez. I'm not expecting him to get on base or be a great batting average guy. I just need that slugging percentage to be, in the 500s, and I need the OPS to be somewhere in the 8s. So yeah, if he could do that and he could just deliver 25 to 35 home runs, that's perfect. That's what we need from this guy. And overall, I really like the addition. This is what we needed. So does it change my prediction for the Mets? Not really. I think this definitely makes them an 80-win team. It's just where in the 80s. Is it more mid 80s or is it low 80s? Like I say, 81 and 81. I don't know. We'll see. But it definitely solidifies their team, their hitting, their offense. It makes their lineup a lot stronger in the middle. So yeah, that's it for JD Martinez. So I'm going to proceed with the rest of the video. Onto their bench, we have Omar Narvaez, Mark Vientos, Joey Wendle, Tyrone Taylor. I really like the Mets bench, pretty deep. Vientos hopefully will platoon with DH with Ji-Man Choi. So Wendle and Taylor are going to be great for like fielding substitutions late in games, and Narvaez can actually hit sometimes when he's in there, so that's good. I like Narvaez as a backup, experienced catcher. So we're gonna talk about Brett Baty, who has had a long journey. Finally got to the MLB in 2022. He did okay, and then he struggled in 2023 after playing 108 games, and then they sent him down late in the season, back to AAA. 26 games to AAA. And he's been tearing it up at AAA, but the problem is MLB level, he's been struggling. So you can see that AAA, he had a 146 weighted runs created plus, MLB 68. So you can kind of see that that's the problem with him, is that he's crushing it in AAA, but in the MLB, he's not quite there yet. So something's not lining up. And then you can see his spring training stats here: 78 weighted runs created plus. So he's kind of doing the same thing, right? Like it's a little better, the slugging and all the averages are slightly better, but still not as good as it should be. Like he needs to be around 100 at least. So there's a debate if he's the shortstop or the third baseman of the future. I'm not sure. He hasn't shown the ability to hit yet consistently, so he needs to learn how to hit in the MLB, and then I think he might be able to be the third baseman of the future. Obviously, he has big shoes to fill with David Wright. So yeah, he just needs to figure out how to hit. If he could do that, that'd be great. And so the projections actually pretty kind to him. If he could do something like 105 weighted runs created plus or 102, yeah, I'll take a 420 slug, 320 on base, 248 average, like all day. 15 home runs, yeah, like that's perfect. If he could do that, that'd be great. That's what you want to see. That's an improvement at least. Like, I'm not saying he needs to be like Pete Alonso, but like, come on. So on to the pitching. Jose Quintana, Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, Adrian Hauser, Tyler McGill. That's the rotation. And then we have Edwin Diaz, Adam Ottavino, Brooks Raley, Drew Smith, Jake Diekman, Jorge Lopez, Michael Tonkin, Sean Reed-Foley. So I really like the Mets pitching staff. Now, you can take this with a grain of salt, but the spring training ERA is the lowest of any team for the Mets, like team ERA and rotation ERA. So that's pretty cool. It bodes well for the season. I think the rotation is going to be sneaky good, although we are missing Senga, who I'll talk about in a sec. But otherwise, I do like Quintana's going to be starting opening day. I do like the rotation. I think it's going to be decent. I mean, it's not like it's not as flashy as Verlander, Scherzer, and DeGrom and all those guys, but it's going to be decent. I think if Severino, Quintana, Manaea all stay healthy, it'll be a good season for the Mets. I feel like, I don't know if we're like a bubble playoff team. I think they could play good enough to get in the playoffs, but also like if people get hurt, it could really spiral out of control. So we're either like in it at the deadline or not. And then in the bullpen, we have Edwin Diaz back finally, which is great news. Adam Ottavino, he's been great for us. Brooks Raley is okay. Drew Smith needs to show that he could do it consistently. Diekman, Lopez, and Tompkin are all new. I'm expecting the most out of Lopez, actually. I think he's a pretty good reliever. He was with the Orioles, so I feel like he's going to be low-key one of the better additions that we have and make the bullpen. Because like the thing about the bullpen last year is that it got really tired out fast because we didn't have enough depth. But there's like another 7 or 8 guys that are in the system that minor leagues that are starting in the minor leagues that could be on the roster too. So I really like their bullpen depth, and that's going to bode well for the guys being rested and stuff. So yeah, it's going to be good. And if guys get hurt, then they have someone to call up. So it all works out good. Now, the rotation is missing Kodai Senga. He had elbow soreness, and he's going to be out 1 to 2 months, of course. In his first season, he did really well. 2.98 ERA. He had Cy Young votes. 10 Ks per 9. 0.92 home runs. So 387 xERA and 363 FIP. 3.4 WAR. It was a really good season for Senga. I'm hoping he can. I don't know if he's going to do quite as good because there's a sophomore bounce back type thing, but I think he's going to be just as good, and the projections pretty much agree. He's going to be a little bit worse, but not significantly so. And obviously, he's not going to pitch as many innings because of the injury, so he'll be back in like late May, June. So yeah, that's kind of tough, but I think we have enough pitching depth to be okay for 2 months without him. Hopefully it's something too much more serious than just soreness. So yeah. And on the injury list, we have Ronnie Mauricio, who was gonna come up this season but got injured in an off-season game, which is too bad. He had some good power ability. Max Kranick, David Peterson, and Kodai Senga, who I said strained shoulder. Yeah. So David Peterson, yeah, he had hip surgery last season. He's gonna be out for a while. He was a pretty good starter usually, kind of inconsistent though. So we'll miss him. But Kranick, I think we just picked him up actually. Yeah, looks like he'll be back later though in the season. And onto the organizational details, we lost a lot of guys. Tim LeCastro, Vogelback, Luis Guillorme went to the Braves, which is kind of interesting. Carlos Carrasco went back to the Guardians. So as you can see, our rankings from last season, we have we were kind of mid at hitting. Home runs were good, but pretty mid. And starting pitching, suffered from injuries last season, so that was a little bit down. But Senga did help us a lot. And then really the bullpen was injured a lot and got overused, so that kind of suffered. I expect every category to go up just slightly, if not a lot. Particularly the pitching, I think, will be better, and the hitting should be probably similar, I would say. So we have a lot of prospects in the system due to all the trades we made last deadline. Mauricio we're going to be MLB ready this year, but all the other guys probably next year or the year after. So yeah. And as for my prediction for the Mets, I'm putting them at 81 and 81, smack dive in the middle, third place again. I don't think they're at the level of the Braves or Phillies, and I don't think they're at the level of the Nationals or Marlins exactly. They're kind of like in between the two. They're not really bad, but they're not going to be really good either, right? So putting them right smack dab in the middle, right where they belong. And on to the next team. The Philadelphia Phillies went 90 and 72, second place behind the first place Braves in the NL East last season. Their lineup is looking pretty good though, and very similar to last year. They have Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Bryson Stott, Alec Bohm, Nick Castellanos, Brandon Marsh, and Johan Rojas. Now, the only real difference in their lineup is Johan Rojas. He's going to be playing center field. He's a prospect for them. So, yeah. But overall, the lineup is going to be just as good as last year. Schwarber leading off. I think they're going to get off to a better start this season because they had a slow start last season after Trey Turner's World Baseball Classic performance. He hit that grand slam and his late game heroics in the World Baseball Classic. But overall, you like their lineup. They lost Rhys Hoskins to free agency, but he didn't play last year because he was hurt. So that kind of hurts them. But I think overall, their lineup is very deep and it's proven to be good. I mean, that's the main thing. They've proven they can do it in the postseason. They can do it in October. So overall, you can't question it too much. That's the thing. The Phillies are one of those teams where you can't question it too much because they've had past success. It's kind of like the Astros. Like, you just know that they're going to be good, and that's it. So on their bench, they have Garrett Stubbs, fellow Garrett, Armando Sosa, Whit Merrifield, who they added, and Christian Pache. Now, I'll talk about Pache in a bit, or next, rather. But as for Merrifield, Sosa, and Stubbs, I like them all. I mean, they're all starters in some variation, or they had been starters in the past, I think. Except for maybe Stubbs, and Sosa. I think he started on and off, but yeah, Merrifield is a starter in Toronto for a while. He's pretty good. So I do like their bench. It's pretty deep. And speaking of Pache, he was originally drafted by the Braves. And then he came up in 2020, only for 2 games, but then he came up again, got another taste, 22 games. He didn't do that great hitting wise. He's a great fielder though. That's the one thing about Pache is he's a really good fielder. He's an outfielder. And then he got traded to Oakland, or he went to Oakland. I think he got traded. He went to Oakland. He did not so good at hitting either there. So he hasn't really found his hitting yet. But then in Philly last season, he actually found some hitting. He had a 99 weighted runs created plus, which is only 1 point below average. 238 average, 319 on base, 417 slug, 320 WOBA. And, so I'm expecting him to take a step forward, actually. I know he hasn't proven that he can do it yet, but it's kind of a Brett Beatty he's kind of trying to get his legs. I mean, he hasn't had that many games, although he has quite a few now. Almost a full season now. For his total games he's played in his career, 163 games. So he's a full season under his belt, and he's done pretty much just below average in terms of hitting. His fielding is excellent though, so they're not gonna miss him. His war is gonna come in the field, not so much from the hitting standpoint, but I think he could improve his hitting. He's already improving a little bit, and it's gonna take him a few years to get there. He's still very young, I believe. I don't think he's that old. Does it say his age here? Oh yeah, he's 25 years old. So yeah, I mean, he would be just hitting his prime, like just about to hit his prime. So if he could figure it out in the next year or two, that's gonna be good for the Phillies. And onto their pitching, we have Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez, Taijuan Walker, Christopher Sanchez. In their bullpen, Jose Alvarado, Jeff Hoffman, Gregory Soto, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Matt Stratham, Oren Kerkering, Connor Brogdon, Spencer Turnbull. So again, they returned pretty much the same rotation in bullpen as last year. They added Spencer Turnbull from Detroit, and they brought up, I think he was up a little bit last year, Oren Kerkering, who we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, overall they did resign Wheeler and Nola. I think it was Nola they signed to a big contract, and then I like Taiwan Walker in their line in the rotation. Actually, he's one of the better. When he was with the Mets, I thought he was really good. He didn't do as well last year, but he's still a serviceable number 4 or 5, even 3 starter. But yeah, I expect their pitching to be pretty decent this year, if not really good again. And in their bullpen, again, you like the back end: Alvarado, Hoffman, Soto, Dominguez, all proven they can do it, especially in October and in the playoffs. The back end of the bullpen, we'll see what they could do. I'm expecting big stuff from Stratham, Dominguez, Brogdon, but I think Oren Kirkering is the most interesting guy in their bullpen. I mean, he might not be the best guy at the moment, but he's one of the more interesting ones because he's a prospect. And he went through the Phillies system from 2022 and he got a taste of the major leagues last season. He got 3 games. So his major league stats aren't much to look at, but when you look at his other stats, you can see he strikes out a tons of guys, like just strikeouts galore. Doesn't give up a lot of home runs. His ERA is pretty either non-existent or very low. And his FIP is pretty good too. So this guy could be potentially a back end option eventually, and maybe a future closer or setup guy, or maybe a mid-range reliever. We don't know, but yeah, I think I like this guy. His name is pretty cool too. I forget where he's from, but anyway, I think he's gonna, if he could have a good season, this guy might be the key addition to their bullpen to put them over the edge, perhaps maybe even above some of the guys they have already. So yeah, we'll see. It's pretty interesting. I thought he was an interesting guy. I looked at when I was looking at his stats, the 13 strikeouts per 9, and then 9 strikeouts, and then 18 strikeouts. I mean, given only 3 games, but still very impressive for a young pitcher. So onto their injury list, we have Dylan Covey and Michael Rucker. Looks like they'll both be back soonish. So they're both relief pitchers. So yeah, we'll see what happens with them. And onto their organizational details, it was Aaron Nola that re-signed, 7 years, $170 million. Michael Lorenzen just went to the Rangers, I believe, as of this video. Craig Kimbrell they lost, Josh Harrison, Rhys Hoskins went to Milwaukee, Corey Knebel went to Chicago. Good for him. And they have a few guys that are ready to come up. Looks like most of them are quite far away, so their farm system's a little shaky. And you can see here Kirkering, he's 2026 is estimated ETA, so looks like he's gonna be a bit earlier, I think, because he looks really good. So looking at their rankings from last year, you can see they did pretty decent on offense. Offensive wasn't really their issue, right? Like they're in the top 10 in every category. I expect them to get the same. Like if we come back next year and it looks exactly the same, I wouldn't be even a little bit surprised. They're starting pitching, I'm gonna expect about the same too. Actually, because they didn't do any major moves, but it wasn't terrible. Like you'd like to see the ERA a bit lower and the home runs per 9 a little bit lower, hits per 9 a bit lower, but other than that, like 14 Ks per 9 is really good. 14th ranked, I guess. But you like to see it a bit higher, lower, really. More in the top 10. And then in the bullpen, perhaps maybe one of the weaker areas. I think this will improve a little bit in some areas because I think some of the new guys they got will be helpful, and the guys coming off the injured list will also help too because one of them was new. I believe it was Michael Rucker. Yeah. And they got one guy from waivers. Yeah. But anyway, so that's the rankings. So as for the Phillies prediction, I'm predicting them to be 91-71, just one game above where they were last season. I don't see that team didn't get worse, but it didn't get significantly better. And I think that the Mets, because last season the Mets were supposed to be more of a threat. They were supposed to contend for the division, but they really didn't. So the Mets are kind of just, I'm kind of keeping them far away. Like I don't think they're going to be that close to the Phillies. I mean, if they outperform their expectations, then yeah, but assuming they do what I think they're going to do, kind of mediocre, kind of mid, the Phillies are going to be comfortably in second place. They might be chasing the Braves. I don't think so, though. I think the Braves still have this division, and we're going to be talking about them next. So 91-71 for the Phillies. On to the next team. The Atlanta Braves won the NL East last season at 104-58. They were 14 games ahead of the Phillies, and the Braves lineup is looking just as good as it always is. They did add one player, Jarred Kelenic, who we'll talk about later. So their lineup is the same: Ronald Acuna Jr., reigning MVP, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna, Michael Harris II, Sean Murphy, Jarred Kelenic, Orlando Arcia. Not much to say about their lineup. It's really good. I hate it. I'm a Mets fan, so yeah. That's all you need to know. Like, the more I hate it, the better, right? Like, that's how you can tell as a Braves fan if it's good or not. If I really hate it, then it's good. So that's it. And props to Acuna. If he could keep up his pace, his 40 home runs, 70 steal season, that's gonna be impressive. He's gonna be hard to top that, honestly, I think. And Albies, Riley, Olson. Now, the thing about the Braves is that they have the most power in their lineup of any team. I think they had like 6 or 7 guys hit 30 plus homers or 20 plus homers. It was crazy. Like, they had a lot of power. And they added Kelenic, who I think could also add some power if they figure it out with him. Yeah, so let's look at their bench. Travis d'Arnaud, David Fletcher, Luis Gourmet, Adam Duvall. Just want to say, Guillermo's a trader, coming from the Mets. Good for him. Still not going to start, though. He has a great glove, I'll tell you that, Braves fans. He has a great glove. He can't hit, though. Adam Duvall is back again. He was really good for him until he broke his leg in 2022. And then Fletcher, he's going to be a good addition, I think. I like that addition. He didn't do much with the Angels. He used to start at first base for them, for the Angels, I believe. So I'm curious to see what they do with him. And obviously, he's always been great off the bench. And Duvall's going to be great as a DH and as a backup outfielder. So, yeah, you like their bench. So, going back to Jarred Kelenic, he came up with the Mets, got traded to Seattle in that famous trade. And then he kind of struggled from there. He had an okay season, or kind of a bad season in Seattle this first year. He played 93 games, had a 73 weighted runs created plus. Not that good. They got sent back down again the next year. And he did okay, and then he did even worse in 2022. And then last year, he came back up again with Seattle, but he actually performed way better. He probably changed something with his swing. And it looks like his problem is really just strikeouts, to be honest. Like, he's a good power hitter when he actually hits contact, but he strikes out way too much, so that's his issue. That's why his average is always so low, because he just strikes out way too much. But when he gets a hold of the ball, it's hit far. So we'll see what the Braves can do with him, if they can turn it around for him or not. And I think the projections are really quite kind to him, because I feel like he hasn't really shown he could do it in the major leagues yet. But I feel like if he does figure it out, it's going to be a good addition for the Braves. Like, he's a good outfielder. He's going to be in the starting lineup, I'm pretty sure. Was he? Oh yeah, left field. Yeah, so he's starting left field. They have Duvall, so if he doesn't hit grid, they could sub out and put Duvall in. But they want this kid to probably do what like, if you take any of his minor leagues statistics, like take 2021 for example. I mean, 143, 320, 392, 624. Or the 14 home runs he hit in 2021 in the majors. That's good. Like, that's where they're kind of putting him at, that same kind of thing, just below average or average. But if he could get to average, that'd be great. Like, that'd be fantastic for him. So, and the Braves, and plus they have a young guy with control. So yeah, I do like the move, and I think if they can get the most out of him hitting wise, that's gonna be good. So onto the pitching, which is arguably even just as strong as their hitting, really. They have Spencer Strider, Max Fried, Charlie Morton, Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez. And their bullpen, they have Raisel Iglesias, AJ Minter, Joe Jimenez, Pierce Johnson, Tyler Matzik, Aaron Bummer, Dylan Lee, Jackson Stevens. So they did upgrade their rotation a bit. They got Sale and they got Ronaldo Lopez in there. I did a video on Sale on my channel. They traded Vaughn Grissom for him. If Sale could stay healthy, he's one of the best lefty pitchers in the league. So you really can't argue with it. And then Lopez, he was good for Cleveland, I believe, and he'll probably be decent again too. And obviously Strider, Fried, Morton. I mean, they've been good consistently every year. Expecting Strider or Fried to compete for the Cy Young probably, and I believe actually Fried's in his contract year, so yeah, he's gonna really shove and try to get that Cy Young, and we'll see what happens with that. But in their bullpen, they have the back end. They have Iglesias, who they traded for last year. Minter, Jimenez. I mean, their bullpen's very strong, especially the back. The back end is very strong, and even the mid tier guys are good too. Matzek, he's been decent. He's hurt a little bit though, I think. So I expect him to bounce back a little bit. And then Bummer and Dylan Lee will probably be good additions from Miami and Chicago. Yeah, I like their bullpen. And the pitcher we're going to be talking about is Chris Sale. So like I said, they traded for him from the Red Sox for Vaughn Grissom. He's a career great pitcher, like 3.10 career ERA. He is injury prone, and he has been for the past couple years. That's why you see his stats are not really the best. And 2020 is obviously missing, and he didn't play a lot of games in some of these years. Like 2021 only 9, 2022 2. Last year he played quite a bit, but wasn't himself exactly, like quite a high ERA. But when he's on his game, like if you look at years past, he's on his game. He's a under 3 or 3 ERA guy. High strikeouts, you see that he averages at least 9 strikeouts per game, career average of 11. So yeah, this guy, when he's on his game, he's one of the best pitchers in the league. He could strike anybody out, and I like him in the rotation. I mean, if he stays healthy, that's a scary rotation piece for them. So yeah. And on the injury list, they have Penn Murphy and Andrew Perdomo. Looks like Perdomo is not going to be back for a while, and neither is Murphy. So, yeah. And looking at the organizational details, they lost Eddie Rosario. They could still resign Brad Hand, Kevin Pillar, Michael Tonkin, Kirby Yates. So, yeah, they lost a few guys here and there. They have a few prospects that looks like are ready to come up soon. So that's always scary. And then, as you can see, they're hitting. The reason why you can't hate on it is because it is number 1 in every category except for stolen bases, which is surprising, given Acuna's ability to steal. But I guess he was the only one doing it, because clearly that's it's impressive. So yeah, not worried about their hitting. Expecting a similar output from them. And then they're starting pitching. I'm starting to be a little bit better, assuming Sale stays healthy and Lopez gives them that performance that they're looking for. So I'm feeling like this will go up, like the rankings will go up a little bit, maybe just outside the top 10 ish. And their bullpen, I would expect about the same, maybe a little bit better because they did add a few pieces, but yeah, about the same. So my prediction for the Braves is pretty easy. It's 103-59. Gave them 1 game below last year. I mean, because last year I don't know, I put all the 3 teams I thought were going to might be competing for the division at similar records. Didn't work out, so just went 1 game off. I think it's going to be slightly closer to the Phillies, but not that close. Like, it was a 14 game gap last year. I think it's going to be maybe like a 11 or 12 game gap. Like, I think the Phillies might catch them, because they're not going to go off for every hitting category again like they did last year, right? That seems almost impossible, but I'm assuming that it's going to be very similar performance for the Braves. So yeah, they're gonna hit that 103 above 100 wins. So yeah, that's it for the AL East, and that's it for my predictions. Make sure to tune in at the end of the year, at the end of the season, and I'll review the predictions, see what I got right, see what I got wrong, see how it all shaped out. So yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Baseball.